Okay, patch 714, TSM versus Team Dignitas. We're going to be looking at this game today. Where's my pen? So, starting off with standard bans. Standard bans for TSM, not so standard bans for Team Dignitas. Team Dignitas taking a wide look at TSM to take control out of the mid lane from TSM's heavy carry Bjergsen. Where is my pen? Here we go. So we go then, we ban the LeBlanc, and we ban the Syndra, Syndra being a highly contested mid laner, and LeBlanc just being an oppressive mid laner with lots of roam potential. And we see the Rumble ban for the top lane bully matchup. We see the Galio ban for the map pressure that it gives out. And we see the Zac ban come out because Team Dignitas has not opted to ban any other major contested picks, including the Maokai, including there's the Caitlyn, which is what I was going to say next, and any other junglers that may be on the table, including Rek'Sai and Elise. As for TSM, let's see what they first pick. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick Maokai. This is patch 714, as I repeat, and Cho'Gath is also on the table. They're hovering Maokai. We're going to turn off the white here, and they go ahead and they pick the Thresh. And what Thresh does is it offers so much utility in the bot lane, and it offers a lot of pressure in the bot lane. Tells us that they're either going to play around the bot lane or they're picking Thresh so that the bot lane can't be taken over easily, because if the bot lane is taken over easily, then they're going to lose pressure on that entire side of the map, and maybe their ADC that they pick, if they're going to pick someone that isn't so great early, not be so great in the mid game. And we see Team Dignitas respond very standardly. You have the Callista, which is extremely high priority right now, as her infinite ability to kite is really hard to deal with. And then we see the Maokai pick up. We're not really sure if this Maokai is going to be in the jungle. We're not really sure if it's going to be in the top lane. But Maokai right now on this patch is as strong as he possibly can be. TSM opt for Tristana, which is really nice. Tristana offers a lot of lane control, and it's going to pair nicely with this Thresh, as Tristana is really hard to kill in the laning phase due to her jump being so far distance. It's good for disengage, it's good for engage. This lane can do basically about anything, which means whatever jungler they pick, which they do lock in the Sejuani, will be putting a lot of pressure in the bottom lane. And if that's going to happen, what TSM can do with this Tristana is, if they are able to gain pressure in the bot lane, if they are able to push Dignitas out, they are able to put a lot more pressure on that first blood tower and that extra 550 gold, in which they can put on whoever they want. So we might see a mid pick from TSM that has a lot of roaming potential. In the second ban phase, we see Orianna is banned out, so that will not be a control mage that comes to offer. And Team Dignitas do respond with Cassiopeia. I'm making this video on patch 716, therefore Cassiopeia is a little bit different right now. As we know, her E has been changed so that it does not have so much damage in the early game, but it will scale more. It's actually 15 less damage, so it will, and it's a 0.05 ratio was taken off of it, or it's given, yes. So it's not so much damage in the early game, so her laning is not going to be as strong as it is in this game that we're watching. But she is quite oppressive, so she can take control of the mid lane, and she's going to be looking for early blood, early summoner spells, and if she can force those out, then whoever they opt to put in the jungle, which may be the Maokai, can have a lot more pressure in the mid lane. They can take control of the game with the Cassiopeia, considering she has so much DPS. And her mid game and late game scaling offers her that she will continue to stay useful for the rest of the game. As for the other bans that are opted, Team Dignitas tries to ban out the mid lane. They go ahead and they ban the Talia, and they say, hey, we don't want you having so much control in the bot lane, because this is definitely aimed at the bottom lane. They want to get that first blood tower. They want to have pressure on that first dragon. We're not sure what that is yet. And TSM opts to ban out top laners, and they ban out the oppressive top laners. So there's a couple different things that they may be doing here. They may be banning out top laners that they don't want to deal with because they have a special pick that they're going to put in the top lane, a special pick that they're going to give Hanser. And maybe Hanser does not deal so well with Jace, as Jace is an oppressive lane bully, and he doesn't deal so well with Fiora either. And this would match up with the idea that they also banned out Rumble, another lane bully. So they may be putting something highly scaling in that top lane, or they're just banning out matchups that may be disadvantageous for any oppressive top laner that they are going to choose. Renekton is on the table. Camille is also on the table. Camille has an extremely hard late game and has definitely snowball potential in this patch. This is after the Camille buff, where her Q was raised from 180% to 200% damage on the second proc. Therefore, both of those are great options for the top lane. But they also want to make sure that they are going to win this top lane, because the bot lane isn't going to win by itself, as Kalista is difficult to kill, but they're not going to die either. So this is a very safe choice. Team Dignitas taking their time choosing their selection. They choose to go for the Blitzcrank. Now, this confuses me. I don't know why this confuses me is that Tristana and Thresh are such a safe lane. It's going to be really hard to cheese them with the Blitzcrank. So what it does tell me is that Dignitas is going to play a lot around this Blitzcrank, and this Blitzcrank is going to be roaming. This Blitzcrank is going to have pressure in mid lane, because really they want to play around Cassiopeia, because getting an ADC fed, while it is nice, every ADC has a linear scaling, and it's always going to look like that. Whereas a champion like Cassiopeia in the mid lane has a much different scaling. It's actually it goes up exponentially. And this can be factored just because of her scalings with AP and how much AP you can get, and the fact that you're going to get percentage more AP and magic penetration. This includes like the idea of Rabadons and Seraphs that give you huge spikes in your AP and have huge scalings. So really, they're just going to play around this. And the Callista is a lot more for the utility and the damage that they know it will give them. What it also tells me is that they're looking for this cheese pick. And this cheese pick is really important in this game, because if we notice, we have a super tank. So we have a good tank, and then we have two extremely high DPS, and we have a huge burst. This tells me that they have a lot of control on Baron. Their Baron potential can be less than 15 seconds at 25 minutes. Less than 15 seconds. Assuming that they are not behind. In a perfectly even game where the score is 0-0, they're actually looking to control that Baron pit. The only problem with controlling that Baron pit is that Sejuani is very good at counter-engaging onto Barons due to the fact that everybody's going to be grouped up for her ultimate. So I think that the Blitzcrank is a strategical decision to say, hey, if you make any mistake at all, we're going to cheese you, and then we're going to force a 5v4 advantage for a free Baron, because there's no way you can contest our Baron. TSM hovering Jarvan. So this Jarvan is going to be in the top lane. And why I'm pausing again before we see TSM's other pick is because this actually throws me off a little bit. Jarvan isn't going to be doing much in the top lane unless he gets a really favorable matchup, and I know that they they don't see the enemy top laner, which is why I see it's a problem to go ahead and pick Jarvan when champions like Renekton are in the table and Jarvan is not going to be as strong in that top lane. He's not going to be oppressive. What it does tell me about the rest of the game, however, is that Jarvan is going to be great engage and dive potential onto the Cassiopeia, and it's going to be followed up by this Sejuani, and they're going to be playing around their main damage source of Tristana. But let's see what they pick for Bjergsen, because that's going to change the entire game, depending on the many options he has, or well, not so many considering there are so many bans in the mid lane. Hovering Xerath. I really like this. This is my first time that I'm going to be watching this game, but I really like the Xerath pick. Xerath is a really undervalued champion in the current meta. It's very nice because he offers extreme wave clear, extreme long range, and extreme poke. Meaning at any time in the game that these choose to siege, or these choose to siege, they're going to have this annoyance of poke. And because it's paired up with the Jarvan Sejuani, once they poke down Dignitas to any point, it's kind of like, alright, depending on how long you've been playing League of Legends, you know that Nidalee used to be a champion that was extremely popular, especially for someone we like to call HGG. I haven't gotten to talk about this guy in a long time, but he's still hanging around in League of Legends for anybody that doesn't know. And Nidalee used to be a great option because her Q was a long-range poke tool, and people used to use it so that if Nidalee were at all fed, even if she wasn't fed, she could be 0-0-0, and her Q would still be able to about half health people. That sounds really ridiculous, but it would cause a disadvantage in any kind of dance where two teams are dancing around an objective. They're dancing around a tower, they're dancing around Baron or Dragon, and it would force an advantage in the upcoming fight or force the enemy team to back off. And what Xerath offers is something similar. Because of his Q. His Q is actually going to scale up to 1300 range when he holds it for the entire duration, which is a little past your Fog of War. And his Q actually has a 285 base damage with a 0.85 AP scaling ratio. Now, this is a big number. This is absolutely disgusting. And paired on top of this is a lot of Xeraths like to take Deathfire Touch. So you're looking at any point past 25 minutes, maybe a 400 AP Xerath. So you're talking about 500 to 600 damage on a Q. So you hit Cassiopeia or Callista with a Q, and they're going to be completely shred for the upcoming fight. His ultimate also offers dive potential, as while these guys can offer the dive itself, Xerath can follow up from an extremely long range, continue to stay safe, and he can continue to use his ultimate to pick off other targets if necessary. How does Dignitas respond? They're looking for a jungler or a top laner, as we have the Maokai. They're hovering the Nunu, which would send Maokai into the top lane against Jarvan, which would actually give Jarvan the matchup he needs. And they go ahead and they opt for Graves. So I think this was a small mistake, or it may have been a strategical decision. But let's think about it. Putting Graves in the jungle is giving yourself another carry. So Dignitas is running a triple threat comp. One mistake by TSM, which a team that Dignitas here has capitalized on, is the idea that Braum is on the table. And I know maybe a lot of people weren't really thinking about this champion, but I can definitely say that Braum is one of the strongest supports in the game. And with his current kit, and with his E specifically, which functions similar to Yasuo Wall, can prevent a lot of these carries from doing anything. They can prevent Graves from doing anything. They can prevent Cassiopeia because Cassiopeia's E um, is also a projectile. Um, and the one problem with picking Braum is not so great into Callista. That would be the one disadvantage because Callista is going to use a lot of her damage in the rend rather than on her actual auto attacks. Um, so that's one mistake. But what they do have is a triple threat comp that's focused around these three, and they have a super tank, and then they have cheese. And really, what their win condition is get Cassiopeia fed or get Graves fed. Callista doesn't really need to be fed, but it would be recommended that Callista is not behind. And they are choosing the Blitzcrank, so maybe some kind of cheese can happen in the bottom lane, but I really don't expect that. If Double Lift and Biofrost are playing properly, that should never happen. Anyway, this is also a nice pick by Bjergsen because Cassiopeia is not going to have so much pressure on him in lane just because he can stand back and farm and he does not have to choose to take fights with Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia likes to take fights in the early game because she wins a lot of them. She wins a lot of lanes. And that will be changing a little bit, just a tiny bit, for Worlds, upcoming Worlds, just because of patch 7.16, the tiny nerf to Cassiopeia. But other than that, her laning will be pretty much unaffected. Anyway, as for TSM, they are looking to get the Tristana fed. Sorry. Let's go ahead and wrap up their win condition real quick. Top lane's gonna win. That they're gonna win early. Jarvan wins before Maokai turns into a super tank. That's pretty much it. Which means in the early game, I expect a small CS difference. I wouldn't say that Hanser would actually end up killing Maokai unless Svenskeren comes in for a gank or a dive early, and we may see one of these level 3 dives onto Maokai, but that would also require someday to mismanage his lane very heavily, because Maokai is going to have to give up CS in the early game. So if no mistakes are made, Jarvan may have a 20 CS lead by 10 minutes if nothing happens, if nothing special happens. As for the mid lane, the CS may vary. Bjergsen may be ahead, Keen may be ahead, but really I expect it to be even. Because Bjergsen won't be opting to take any fights, and I'm assuming Keen will want to fight, but Bjergsen won't allow that. And because Xerath is going to be so far pushed back in lane, because he's probably going to be playing very passive, he's going to be saving his mana only for the CS. He's probably going to be standing back, so Shrimp can't really do anything to him. So you won't see anything happen mid lane, except for when Adrian roams. That is one thing that will happen. Adrian will roam. Adrian will roam probably with Shrimp. Adrian will probably roam with Shrimp, and maybe someday, depending on who's level 6 and who's not. And they can focus on this mid lane. If they can power the mid lane down, they can also get first blood turret mid lane. And if that does happen, then we will see a return turret. It may be first blood turret from Double Lift in the bot lane, because Double Lift and Biofrost can choose not to roam to the mid lane with Blitzcrank and Keen and push into the Callista. And then you will see a turret in the mid lane down for TSM and a turret in the bot lane down for Dignitas, which arguably do similar things. Mid lane turn is generally higher priority, but it really depends on what your team composition is and how you're going to be functioning. Let's go ahead and get into game, as I've talked quite a bit about the team compositions. Standard spread, any special items. Jarvan went Corrupting Potion. He wants to make sure that he can punish Maokai as much as possible, and even make mistakes and still be able to come back from that. Maokai goes ahead and he takes Joran Shield. He just wants to live and get whatever CS he's given. Dignitas moving in here. Probably want to get some vision. It's nice to get vision on these race here because you don't know who's going to start race and who's not going to start race. Venscrin and Haunts are doing the same thing. They go ahead and they place the ward there. Shrimp can choose to start race or Shrimp can choose to not start race. But generally it's recommended as it's the fastest and most efficient jungling path. And the ward was placed here by Dignitas as well, and also onto the red. And this is actually more strategic because it tells you whether or not TSM is going to go for that double leash that's been really popular lately. But TSM choose to put Svenskin starting at blue, and Shrimp opts not to start in his ward as well. He's going to go start at red. And we know these ward times, they're not much longer than 60 seconds. So once they're over, they will be fog of war completely. If there's anything other interesting to note, there is Thresh taking a Targon's. There's lots of talk lately about whether or not Targon's is correct for Thresh. And whether or not Ancient Coin is as efficient as it really should be. That is up to the player, it's up to the game, but it's also up to whether or not you want the items, as the upgraded Targon's Brace is actually pretty nice. It's an extra shield, and then you have the Ancient Coin, which can give you the speed up, or if the speed up is not really that great for your team, in which actually I would recommend it in this team just because of all the hard engage they have with the Jarvan and the Sejuani, and then the Thresh following up. But a lot of people who opt for the coin also opt into buying the Sightstone mixed with the coin, which still gives you the passive. Dignitas Shrimp, he is really searching for something in this jungle here. He went ahead and he got a ward, so he goes ahead and he sees Svenscrin. Svenscrin now knows where he is, as he is the only person on the map who was not seen before, and he's going ahead and go do some counter jungling. Sejuani's clear is not so great early, whereas Graves' clear is phenomenal. And he goes ahead and he leaves a Wraith just so that he can put Svenscrin a little bit behind. Any lead that Shrimp can get, he's going to go ahead and try and punish that as much as possible. Small CS lead actually in the favor of Keen in the mid lane. I don't know if that was a misplay by Faker, or not Faker, Bjergsen, but he should be able to get more farm. I wouldn't expect that. I feel like there's a way that Xerath can actually play that lane. He doesn't need to miss that much, because this is a 12 CS lead at 4 minutes. That's insane. If it was 2, 3, 4, 5 CS, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But it's a lot more. Small CS lead beginning in the top lane as well. That's to be expected. Svenscrin going into Dignitas jungle, trying to get some counter jungling, has a ward so that he can go ahead and he can see Shrimp when Shrimp happens to pass through this area. He's going to do the same thing that Shrimp did to him at his Wraith camp. He can probably kill a couple of those. Yeah. And he's going to go ahead and go for a back. Bot lane playing standard. Not really a CS lead. The CS lead is going to be 2 in the favor of TSM after those minions are taken. Shrimp moves top lane. I do not believe he was sighted. No, I do not think Haunser knew that he was there, but Haunser definitely sensed it. He maybe someday was playing the lane in a way where it was readable that Shrimp went up there. And he definitely has to play a little bit safe because it would be good for someday to get any gold in this matchup, even an assist and getting Graves fed, because that's definitely part of the win condition. And early in the matchup where Maokai is still has more percentage health damage overall, just as a dueler, rather than later when his damage is almost negligible, would be better for ganking. And Maokai, due to all the CC he has, is very nice. But it definitely requires Haunter to make a mistake. Some days now pushing in. Small CS lead. Almost went away. Haunter missed a couple minions when he realized that Shrimp was there, and that's where that CS lead went. And that's good by Shrimp. It's good by Dignitas putting pressure so that their lanes don't get behind. Biofrost choosing to return hook onto Adrian. Nothing happens though. Shrimp finds Svensgren in the jungle. Nothing happens. Svensgren runs away, and Shrimp goes ahead and contests Vision, takes out a pink ward, 75 gold. That's mine. He's going to be putting another pink ward all behind the TSM red buff. And he's looking to do all the counter jungling in this game as fast as possible, but he's going to have to burn flash here. Very punishable. So let's take a look at what actually happened there. This was extremely bad timing for Shrimp, because if we really look at what happened, Tristana took a back, and we know that she took a back because Thresh. We had a small encounter where Adrian pulls Thresh, and we can go back there. Let's go ahead and go back there. So Tristana's recalling now. And she's recalling on a ward. So this tells me a lot about what Shrimp is doing, because Shrimp knows that Tristan is backed, which means he can probably contest Vision. Now the problem is if Shrimp was going to contest Vision or steal jungle camps, he would do it now, because now he's contesting Vision, because Trist has about 15 to 20 seconds before she gets back into the lane, which means that 10 seconds from now, 20 seconds from now, when Shrimp goes into the enemy jungle to counter jungle, Tristana is going to be returning to her tower. And because he's entering this far side of the jungle on the map, he has nothing else to go. He's nowhere else to go. So he chooses to ward. He sees Svensgren taking the golems. He Qs, he smites. So everything was proper up until this point. But he chooses to go aggressive. Now let's talk about why this is a bad idea. The bot lane is pushed up with Thresh. So Thresh is over here, and they have the bot lane, and the bot lane can't enter the blue side jungle. There's no way that they can safely enter the blue side jungle, because they have to maneuver around the tower here, and they have to get to Graves. And Graves is extremely far away. Whereas Graves now has Sejuani on him. Tristana's going to be coming in from right here. Or wait, where is Tristana? No, Tristana's right behind Sejuani. She's not over here yet, I'm sorry. Tristana's right behind Sejuani, and Thresh is just going to move back. Maybe Thresh will lose some experience from the tower, but Thresh is going to be moving on to Shrimp here. So if Shrimp were to actually get out of this right now, he needs to flash back over the wall immediately. He cannot move forward, and his mistake is that. Yeah, there was no reason for Shrimp to even be there, except for the counter jungle, and it definitely was not worth it, because now we have first blood onto Sejuani, and Sejuani's going to be ahead of Graves. And as Sejuani gets ahead of Graves, she gets closer to her jungle item. Her jungle item gives her better clear, and that means she can catch up in CS, or even get ahead of CS in Graves, even though normally Graves has the CS lead. And that's a big problem for Dignitas. Here's the replay. But we know what happened. So Shrimp can't really play over aggressive anymore. He can't he's not going to counter jungle unless he knows where Svensgren is. If Svensgren appears topside and he's bot side, he can invade bot side jungle. If Svensgren's bot side and he's top side, he can invade top side jungle. But there's no reason for him to be doing anything else. Adrian and Haunter both roaming into the mid lane. Biofrost not far behind them. The ultimate came out from Bjergsen to put some more pressure on the Keen. He wants Keen to back out a lane. And he wants Keen to back out a lane specifically because he wants Keen to miss some CS. He wants to make sure that that CS lead that was developed earlier at level 1, 2, 3 does not grow so big. And he is successful in that, as the CS lead is almost nothing now. He's getting some CS under turret, which means these two waves are going to crash onto each other. So he's only up by 1 CS, but that's perfectly fine. Let's look at some itemization choices. What's standard? Everything is standard here. Everything you see here is completely normal. There's nothing for me to say. As for here, we see a Negatron cloak come out from Keen. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's really good because it's going to help Keen safely lane. And what it allows Keen to do is it allows Keen to abuse the fact that Cassiopeia's base damages are fairly high, and then start ignoring a lot of Xerath's damage. Because this Negatron cloak is appearing long before the curve that you normally see people grab magic resist, which is much later in the game, usually around the 20-minute mark. So he's now ahead of the curve in terms of tankiness, and he's going to be using that to get ahead in lane and start using his pressure as the champion that he's chosen. And let's go ahead and talk about one more thing here. We're now at 8 minutes in the game. There is a Wind Dragon on the table. No one's really interested in the Wind Dragon. The Wind Dragon is really going to only be taken as a free objective. Wind Dragon is very powerful. I will not say that Wind Dragon is not powerful, because it does allow you for faster rotations, easier rotations, understanding of the map, and it allows you to, because it allows you to get around faster, it allows you to punish Dignitas or TSM. It allows you to punish the enemy team more for mistakes that they make. If they die and now they have a 20-second death timer, if you can move a lot faster and you can move to a part of the map, if you can move to a lane where the lane is pushed and you can push on that tower, you now have a couple more seconds to get on that tower, which means you have a couple more auto attacks. That may change whether or not you have the tower or not. That's going to change a lot of dynamics in the game. It's also going to change like how fast people can return to Dragon. Say like everybody's running from Dragon from their base, or somebody's running from Dragon to Baron. That movement speed will change a lot on how quickly something needs to be done. But nobody wants to take it because it's no direct combat stats. Mountain Drake is nice because it gives you more pressure on the other Drakes and the Baron, but so that one is usually highly contested. It's not Water Drake. Water Drake would be really highly contested by TSM because they really like this siege composition, which is going to be centered around the Xerath. And Dignitas might also really like the Water Drake because even if they get poked down by Xerath, if they have 2 Water Drakes, that will solve the issue of Xerath being a problem. All they have to do is make sure they don't get hit for a couple seconds, 10, 12 seconds, and they're perfectly fine. Therefore, Xerath would not be a problem until much later in the game. But the Wind Dragon, however, is generally not a highly contested dragon, and we know that. And if it were to be taken in this game, it's because one of these teams makes a huge mistake, and it has to be punished by taking an objective. And that objective, the first objective that would come after a huge mistake, is the first turret. As the first turret, you can give 550 extra gold on anybody you want, and then after first turret, you would see a Dragon Call. However, that Dragon Call may not always take place either. Because if you're on top side of the map, you can't exactly go to the dragon, which is why Rift Herald now exists, and Rift Herald's going to be spawning in 2 minutes, and both teams are going to put more pressure in the top lane into the top lane because they're going to want that Rift Herald, and that Rift Herald's going to give you a lot in the game because the Rift Herald doesn't just give you the pressure on a turret. If first turret hasn't been taken, Rift Herald will give you first turret. You can force first turret with the Rift Herald just by making a rotation. So everything is still standard at this point. You see standard vision. We have a pink ward here. We have pink wards here from both teams. Adrian's still trying to get as much cheese off as possible with the Blitzcrank. Everything's standard. So one thing to note right now is Sejuani now has level 6, which means Sejuani is going to put more pressure in the bottom lane. Graves is doing the same thing. TSM contests vision, and because they're on blue side, their tri-bush is generally theirs. It's in your territory. So they do have the defensive and the advantage for playing around the bot lane. Shrimp standing in the pink ward to make sure he might be able to pull off something mid here. Keen's going to be looking for a nasty ultimate. Nope. Keen's just going to push out. Shrimp says, I don't see anything here, therefore we're not going to do anything. Goes ahead and contests more vision, takes out a pink ward. Lots happening in the bot lane. Adrian's trying really hard to make something happen, but it's really difficult, especially at this stage in the game. We see a Biofrost return hook onto Adrian. Adrian's going low. He still has his passive. There it pops, and the heal comes out from Altec. Xerath goes ahead and gets his ultimate out, but he's going to be stunned by Keen and taken out by Shrimp. Very bad positioning by Bjergsen. His ultimate has a lot more range than that. Doublelift was not able to secure the kill. Keen's still looking for more. Keen gets more. Keen uses the cleanse to take out the Thresh Hook. Everything turned out so well for Dignitas there, but let's go ahead and take a look at the closer thought. So Sejuani and Xerath are roaming together, and they're roaming through blue side jungle. And Cassie and Graves are roaming through the river. Now, TSM and Biofrost and Doublelift win this fight, generally. Just because they're both full health, they both have shields, and they have the jump on Blitz, and Blitz doesn't have hook. Like, they don't have priority onto Doublelift, because if Altec and Adrian are going to win this lane, they have to have priority onto Doublelift. Doublelift has to make a mistake. They have to grab Doublelift out of his jump, and Doublelift has to not be able to do anything, because if they're able to kill Doublelift, then they can kill Biofrost too, or Biofrost will live and run away. Whereas they don't really have this dynamic right now. So TSM goes ahead and pushes the engage. TSM backs off a little bit. They continue damage. So Sejuani is coming in here, which seems like a problem to me, because now Adrian's so far away, Altec's far away, and the heal is burned, and the ignite is burned, and we don't have any summoner spells burned. We do have Bjergsen popping his ghost to get to the bottom lane quicker, but Doublelift now has an advantage, because Altec doesn't have either of these spells. He doesn't have the ignite, he doesn't have the heal. Doublelift is going to have heal soon, and Doublelift doesn't have flash, but he doesn't really need that right now, and because he's Tristana. Really, if something's going to happen here, Sejuani has to move down, these guys have to move back, and these guys have to play forward, and they have to play into the Sejuani ult. But Dignitas isn't that stupid. Dignitas isn't going to make that mistake. Really, they can't force anything else here. Now, Bjergsen makes a really bad mistake by... he starts his ultimate here. Like, why is this a problem? He is seen. He knows he's seen. Shrimp saw him. Like, we saw Shrimp, right? Yeah, we saw Shrimp. There's no reason for him to be starting his ultimate there. And him starting his ultimate to try and hit onto Adrian, Like, if they're going to force that, they have to force that and get out somehow. And if they do force to go in, they don't have anything to get out. Like, double lift has no mana. Biofrost is half health. Svenskeren is a Sejuani, but Svenskeren does not have any damage. Sejuani's damage values are a lot higher than they used to be, but they are no longer, but they are not amazing. So Bjergsen firing his ultimate here is putting himself in a compromising position. If he wanted to ult, he could walk down here and ult. He needs to be in a safer position, because let's watch him get collapsed on. Let's watch it. Let's just focus on Bjergsen. We see Keen move forward. Keen uses the flash ultimate. Shrimp is going to move forward. Shrimp has a lot of burst damage. Keen has a lot of burst damage. He's stunned. He's, petrified for 1.5 seconds. He doesn't have cleanse. And he's going to be blown up by 2 carries. These are 2 carries. 2 carries versus 1 is always... the 2 carries are usually going to win. Unless that 1 carry is extremely fed or CC'd for the entire duration. Like, this is such a bad mistake by TSM. This is not something that I would normally expect. Especially from Bjergsen. I wouldn't expect him to put himself in such a compromising position. Here's the replay. That was a pointless ult by Doublelift, by the way. Doublelift now does not have enough mana to use his W, and his W is his general escape. So this is another red flag for TSM. This should be another red flag saying, hey, don't go in, everybody run, get out, let's reset the lanes. That was a late flash by Biofrost. Biofrost needed to flash before Cassiopeia's Q hit him, so Cassiopeia wouldn't get the extra movement speed. Making the best of a bad situation needs to happen. So Dignitas actually returned this with First Blood Tower, and I was saying earlier that First Blood Tower is a lot more important than Wind Dragon. And let's look at what happened. Blitzcrank actually ends up roaming top after he backs, and Tristana continues to stay bottom lane, and Kallista's going ahead and go and match her in the bottom lane. This doesn't make 100% sense to me. Let me think about it. Because now the primary objective on the map is Rift Herald. It would be beneficial for TSM to put Tristana in the top lane now. No. No. I'm wrong. No. TSM needs to have pressure on the Rift Herald. And they have Thresh top lane. They have Thresh top lane with the Jarvan. But I think they put Tristana bottom lane because they want Doublelift to be farming, and they want him to just scale up as quickly as he can, and they do not want him losing anything. Therefore, they do not want him contesting any major objectives because they do not want the chance of him getting further behind. This seems like the logical decision to me, and that's why Thresh is top with Jarvan, just so that they can continue to have pressure on the Rift Herald. Dignitas go ahead and put Altec back in the bottom lane. I think that's where the mistake lies. I think Altec can go top. Because Altec is another person that's going to have big pressure on the Rift Herald, because if Altec and Shrimp are both there, nobody can outsmite Svenskeren. All they have to do is match the Rend with the smite, and they have Rift Herald. They can force it. The only time where this wouldn't be the case is if they're going to prioritize Dragon, and it looks like they are. They just pinged it. They're going towards it. TSM may give this up for free. it would actually be safe for TSM to give this up for free. Sejuani goes ahead and jumps in, see if it's low health enough to smite, realizes that it's not low enough health to smite, um, and just goes ahead and jumps out with the Thresh Lantern. So this is good by Dig, because as I noted earlier, if you're going to take a Wind Dragon, it's got to be free. Nobody's going to prioritize a fight for a Wind Dragon because nobody wants to lose anything or risk a big lead for a Wind Dragon, because the Wind Dragon's not going to be enough. Because say, for example, you fight at Fire Dragon. 3 of your people die, you get a kill, and you get the Fire Dragon. So the enemy team now has 900 more gold. You guys got 300 more gold, but you have the Fire Dragon. So it's now worth. While you did lose a lot, you also gained a lot because the Fire Dragon is such a powerful resource, both in pushing, in damage, in terms of dueling. It's the most powerful objective in the game. Also due to the fact because it's permanent. But nobody wants to do that for a Wind Dragon. Nobody wants to fight. Anyway, now that there was no incentive for Doublelift to be bottom lane, they went ahead and they put him in top lane. And they have Hunter in the bottom lane. Hunter is teleport. Now this is why I originally was confused. Because they did want to get pressure on the Rift Herald, and if Haunter's in the bottom lane, Haunter can teleport to Rift Herald, and the same thing will happen with Someday. Whereas if Tristana was in the bottom lane, and both of these guys are top, someone has to be matching Tristana, so that Tristana can't get the tower, and then the fight at the Rift Herald will only be 4v4, it will not be 5v5. And that would be bad for TSM. Generally, yes. It would be bad for TSM because Cassiopeia has gold and Bjergsen does not. And while Doublelift does not have as much gold as Callista, he is useful. And if a fight were to be turned, it would have to be from a mistake by Dignitas that is capitalized on by TSM with as much burst as possible. Because while Dignitas did pick the Blitzcrank for picks, and they can use it for picks and cheese and stuff like that, that's why a lot of people do like Blitzcrank. They can do the same thing with Thresh. But they need to follow up with damage, and they do have the damage. They have the J4 burst, and they have the Xerath burst, and then they have more burst coming in from Tristana because due to the stun from Thresh, then the stun from Sejuani, and the knockups, and the stun from Xerath. If they catch one person by themselves, they will punish that, and that can lead to a Rift Herald. Doublelift actually not doing any damage to Someday at all. That's partly due to the Ninja Tabi. Let's go ahead and look at some itemization again. Jarvan's got his key items. Phage and Tiamat. Those are really, really important. And he's got Kindle Gems for his Black Cleaver. It's going to give him a small power spike. Zeros almost finished Morellonomicon. Tristana's working on Infinity Edge. They have the Sight Stone. Thresh has mobility boots. Sejuani has her first clear done, which means she's going to be focusing on tier 2 boots. And then we see the Abyssal Mask come out from Keen. And this is really nice because it ups her dueling potential a lot, it ups her base damages, and it allows her to scale. It gives her mana for her Seraph's Embrace for when that's going to happen, and it allows her to be a dueler with the Maokai and the Blitzcrank. Because Blitzcrank and Maokai both are going to have a decent amount of magic damage. If they can burst anybody with that, then they're going to go ahead and do that. So they're going to play around Keen. At least that would be what I recommend. So TSM getting a lot of vision control around the Rift Herald pit. Dignitas is going to be going to contest that now. They have a group of 3 set out for it. Always grab a warding buddy, helps you butt. Shrimp getting a little bit of deep vision so he can see what's happening. Adrian getting hooked by Biofrost here. Double Lift's going to be following up with damage, but Shrimp pops up in the lane to make sure that nothing breaks out. Bjergsen going to be jumping onto Keen here. Svenskeren jumps over the Wraith wall. Haunter almost dies. Going to be ticking away here. No, Someday's going to jump in. He's going to finish that out. Haunter can't get out. Bjergsen pops Ghost. Svenskeren gets caught out by Shrimp and Adrian and Altek because they all roam down. And Doublelift hasn't left the top lane. So let's go ahead and look at how that happened, because this was there were so many mistakes that led to this. So first of all, you have Thresh in the jungle, which means he's not being useful. He's not in mid lane, where you're currently making a fight. He's not in top lane, protecting the Tristana, even though he can be. But we did see that everybody left top lane. And look at what's happening here. Kalista and Blitz walk through vision that TSM has. This TSM sees this. I just want to see exactly when they figure it out. This was horribly played by Bjergsen. Bjergsen is obviously not the best Xerath in the world. It's really hard to be good at Xerath, because if this was going to happen, Xerath really needed to hit his E. His E, the stun, would have made this play a lot cleaner, because Keen would have died quicker, Haunter would have never died, and they would be able to get out. But that isn't the only mistake. Sorry. So Keen realizes that he's being forced on, and Maokai goes for the teleport here. And because Doublelift sees that Altek and Adrian left the top lane, they are going to have priority in getting to mid lane before Thresh and before Doublelift. Meaning, if this E doesn't hit, if this does not hit, this should never happen. This fight should never happen. They should accept the fact that Maokai used his teleport to try and help Keen, to save Keen's life, and maybe that was successful. And back off completely. This is the second time that TSM in this game is looking for more than they really should be. Because they don't know where Graves is. Graves is actually top. Or no, they did know where Graves was. But Graves is going to be rotating with the Blitz and the Kalista. So let's go ahead and look at it again. This Sejuani ult misses too. This is really bad. All of these things, all of these CCs, if one of them hits, all of them hit. Therefore, if you hit one, then the play is a go. And if you don't hit one, and you don't hit them all, the play is horrible. Horrible. Absolutely unacceptable by TSM, honestly. Like, Bjergsen even has to burn ult just because they missed so many spells that they couldn't do anything about it. And Blitz manages to reach mid with Shrimp and Altek. This is just horrible by TSM. TSM also needs to understand that they need to play with more patience. I understand that you need to force a lot, because this is force. This is forcing on objectives, just because Tristana has so much pressure on towers. But you can be patient with the Xerath. Xerath is going to scale into an unstoppable annoyance. If Xerath becomes an unstoppable annoyance, then the rest of the team can function as necessary. So let's talk about the state of the game. It's 15 minutes, and there's a 3,500 gold lead, which is gonna be bigger. 3,500 at 15 minutes. I'm sure we know what that is. It's like an item. What is happening? Why is this happening? What the hell is going on? Hold on. I need to understand the stupidity that led up to everything I just saw. Okay. Let's talk about why Dignitas just threw a shit ton of their lead and a shit ton of their tempo. They actually lost more tempo than they lost gold here because two of them died. Um, but let's talk about how this happened. They went ahead and they took mid lane tower. Okay, you got mid lane tower. You have a gold lead. Everybody's sitting on gold right now, by the way. Everybody on TSM or not TSM, Dignitas is sitting on gold. They have gold to spend. Cassiopeia is the only one who doesn't, and she based before a Rift Herald, which doesn't make sense to me unless she's out of mana, because if you're gonna do a Rift Herald play, and not everybody on the enemy team is dead, you have a big problem. Like, they are going to contest that. If you're going to make a play and you do not expect a response from your enemy, you're blind. Okay? You're blind. You're blind. There's always going to be a response. Sometimes the response is vision, and they give an objective up, like as we just saw a couple seconds ago. TSM didn't contest this mid lane tower. Like, Dignitas is taking the mid lane tower, and TSM didn't contest it. They're just here for the experience. They're just here with the minions, and it's a healthy handshake, saying you bested us in that encounter, but here's our tower. We're gonna move on later in the game. So Altec's here, Adrian's here, Shrimp is here, and Someday's here. Everybody has mana, everybody's fine. We have summoner spells, Altec doesn't have flash, and Keen is on his way. Now here is why it is a big problem. Doublelift is back with full health, full mana. Biofrost is here with full health and almost full mana. Svenscreen is now alive. Rift Herald takes a long time to take. It is a long objective. It takes a long time to kill. And Svenscreen is alive when you're starting it, meaning he can probably get close by the time you finish it. Lastly, but not the least, of the problems that Dignitas is now facing is the fact that Hauntzer is alive too. Hauntzer died in that past encounter, but Hauntzer still has teleport. Maokai used teleport in mid lane to try and save Cassiopeia, and they forced that mid lane tower with that play. But now Jarvan has teleport. It's time for Jarvan to use his teleport. If a fight's gonna happen, Jarvan's gonna teleport in. There it is. Shrimp gets absolutely blown the fuck up. And this is all a huge problem because they decided to Rift Herald without Keen. Like, think about it. Why are they not doing Rift Herald with their most fed person? Why are they contesting a major objective without where most of their gold is? That's that's a huge problem. That speaks wonders on what the decision making by Dignitas is. Wow, that was funny. I said earlier that Xerath was going to scale into an unstoppable annoyance. Notice how he just killed Janna with one ability? That's his ultimate? That's not even his level 3 ultimate, where he has 5 shots, and they do even more damage than that. Xerath is always annoying. He's annoying. And you can't stop him from being annoying because he's so long range and he stays so far away that he's always going to be useful. But it also the reason why Xerath isn't a contested pick is because it's a champion with 4 skill shots, and it means he's really unreliable. It means there's a lot of counterplay available, like flashing abilities or dodging. A lot of champions have dashes. Like a lot of that will be missed. But because of his cooldowns that are low, and because of Moral Anomicon, he can continue to spam, and Blue Buff will do the same thing for him. Anyway, Rift Herald's still on the map. Oh, I forgot to mention that Cassiopeia, while she also was the misfed person, she's also using an aura item. You wanted to be in a group where a team fight could happen without your aura item. Yeah, good job. Good job, Dignitas. Anyway. So TSM gets another kill for free. They may or may not choose to turn this into Rift Herald right now. I don't know if they see Cassiopeia backing. No, they do not. They have no vision on Cassiopeia right now. So they're going to choose to not Rift Herald because it's too dangerous. And that would be the decision that you're supposed to make. That Dignitas failed to make. Let's go ahead and move forward. We're taking a long time for this game here. So the gold is really even. So let's talk about what these teams want to do. I talked a lot earlier about how Blitzcrank is really good for cheesing. Because if you make one mistake where you're alone or you get caught against this team, Graves, Cassiopeia, Callista, if you get caught against this team, they're going to CC you up, lots of CC, and lots of damage. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous what they can do with this Blitzcrank. So the Blitzcrank is really just going to be roaming along the 3 carries, and Maokai should really be doing the same thing. If top lane's pushed, Maokai could be out doing something. They can be active. But I think what's also going through in the Dignitas mindset right now is that both teams have extremely powerful late game. And while that is a really important idea and how we need to always understand that the late game is going to be a lot different than what it is now, because once everybody has 6 items, the game changes completely. Everything becomes different. Sejuani at that point is going to be unkillable. Jarvan's going to be close to unkillable. He's going to do a decent amount of damage. Xerath is going to be one of the higher damage mages in the game. I don't know how many people know this, but I talked earlier about his 85% AP scaling on his Q. His other scalings are just as annoying, including in the center of his eye, a 0.91, 91% of your AP. And these are short cooldowns. You're talking about like 4-second cooldowns. Tristan is a hyper carry. There's not really much else to say about that. And Thresh is just good utility. He's always going to be good utility. And looking at this team, you see damage. And that's the highest DPS in the game right there. And then you see burst. Graves is your burst. And then you have more DPS and burst. Burst with the Ren, DPS with the autos. That's their team. And then you have a super tank. Like, this is unkillable. The Maokai's unkillable. And then you have a cheeser. That's it. Because if you're not cheesing with Blitzcrank, he's just a face tank. He's no more useful than a Nunu. You might, like, Blitzcrank and Nunu don't do, like, Blitzcrank has a pull, Nunu has his ult and Blood Boil, but, like, they have different abilities, I'm sure, but they're both just face tanks. They don't do that much. They have key win conditions. They're very simple, but they don't do that much. So really what would happen in the late game is whoever makes the first mistake. Because if one of these three carries makes a mistake and gets engaged on, they die and they force a 5v4, and because it's a 5v4 and you have Blitzcrank, you lose. And even in a 5v5 situation, if they can't kill Bjergsen, if they can't kill Double Lift, they can't win the fight. And these two, he's long range, and she's also long range. Because she's going to have 636 range, or I think that's the right number. Don't quote me on that. And she's going to have her W, which resets after every kill. Like, if it means anything to me, I understand that TSM has the better late game. But it does not necessarily mean that Dignitas cannot win the late game. But any team that chooses to do nothing when they're at about a 2,000 gold lead, 1,500 gold lead, I can't really respect that team a lot. Because proactivity and reactivity are two really important things in League of Legends. And they're two really important things in chess. But in order to abuse the fact that you are ahead in the first place, you need to be proactive. Because the team that is normally behind will normally be reactive. Keen goes ahead and kites a lot here, but what was his positioning for most of that fight? So this is good for Dignitas. I mean, that's obvious. I don't need to say that. I was only confused about Keen's positioning because it seemed like he was in a really dangerous position for me. But this is fine. So Dignitas wants the Water Dragon, as I said earlier, to nullify the Xerath poke. And they also want the Water Dragon because TSM would want the Water Dragon so that they can continue up with the Xerath poke, because it gives it helps with their siege. Because sieging with Tristana Xerath would be very strong, because you have two face tanks to soak up damage and skill shots, and then you have these two. This one doing primarily damage to the enemy champions, and this one blowing up your tower. So Dignitas makes an aggressive play, they go for Dragon, and because TSM has poked their head into the situation, Dignitas is going to go ahead and respond by forcing onto them. Let's look at exactly what happened. So TSM realized that Keen is by himself. Now this was really well played by Keen, because Keen manages to proc his Storm Raider Surge on top of his Q, meaning he's really hard to catch right now. Whereas normally, if he's alone, there would be an immediate collapse, an immediate Sejuani ult, and yes, this could be a mistake by Svenskeren for not capitalizing on Keen earlier, or whoever Team Solo Mid's shot caller is. Because if Keen's separated from the rest of the team, and you can jump on him, and you can give up one Water Dragon, because it's one Water Dragon. It's one Water Dragon for nullifying the gold lead and giving you a 5v4 scenario that they can push down mid lane turret, or even take Rift Herald, so that Dignitas cannot get Rift Herald. They want to force a situation where they have an advantage, because right now they don't have the advantage. They don't have the gold lead. So they need to find an advantage somewhere else. And the easiest way to find an advantage is with numbers. 5v1 here, 5v4 later. That's how it should have been. They should have capitalized on Keen a lot faster because Keen managed to kite out. Keen managed to almost kill Biofrost before he even soaked up a hook. Keen does have purification right now. I'm sorry, cleanse. And he cleanses out of that and he kites away. He gets almost taken down by Xerath, but Bjergsen doesn't want to risk his last shot on not having vision on Keen. So they don't go ahead and do that. Sejuani and Haunter, both their tanks are taken away, and now TSM can't do anything. And now that TSM doesn't have their jungler, they don't have their support because their support's low, and they don't have their top laner, and their top laner doesn't have teleport, now is the correct time for Dignitas to Rift Herald. And Graves is going to be going on the Rift Herald solo. But if anything, well played by Keen, badly played by the rest of TSM. Yeah, it was honestly a shame because if they could force the 5v4 scenario, then you have 2 carries versus 2 carries and 2 tanks. And that would be a lot easier to fight than the two than 2 carries versus 3 carries and 2 tanks. So Dignitas now has Rift Herald, right? I wish I could see Graves. I'm pretty sure they picked up the Rift Herald in time. It wasn't a lot of time to take it, but it disappears at like 1935 or something. But I'm assuming that it's on Graves. And let's go ahead. There's a 3,000 gold lead, 3,200 to be exact. And with the Rift Herald, they can take a tower. And with the tower, it gives them 750 gold, which leads to a 4,000 gold lead, just about. And with a 4,000 gold lead, you can force fights. And if you look here, now that they're ahead, they want to set up their win condition. And their win condition right now is a 4-1. Well, they could run the 4-1. Dignitas can run a 1-3-1, or they can run a 4-1. And why I say this is because Cassiopeia is strong enough so that she can duel anybody in the game. So you can put Cassiopeia in the 3rd lane. So if you have 3 lanes, here's top, mid, bot, and you put Maokai here, and you put Kalista, Graves, and Blitz here, and you put Cassiopeia here. And this is perfectly fine. And this would be a really good setup if you had Baron, so that you could siege all 3 lanes at the same time and collapse onto a lane if that lane was going to be the lane that you're going to break the base, because breaking the base is the most important thing in the game, and whoever breaks the base generally is the person who wins. Generally, if the base is broken, it's very bad news for that team, because inhibitors change the game completely. Another setup that Dignitas has, I can't go back that far. Same setup with the lines here. Another setup is Cass, Graves, Kalista, Blitz, and then you have Maokai up here, or you have Maokai down here. Maokai, it doesn't really matter where Maokai is. And actually, it doesn't really matter where these guys are either, because these 4 can stay grouped, and this guy has teleport, and because he's unkillable, he can go in the other lane. Now, that would be matched with these 4 and this guy splitting in the side lane. And I'm pretty sure right now that Haunter does not have lane pressure on Maokai, which means eventually, Dignitas wins. And why I say that is because eventually Maokai is going to push Haunter out, which means Haunter has to back, and Haunter has to use his teleport for either teleporting to a tower to save the tower, or they have to give up that tower. And giving up that tower would be another 750 gold. And that 750 gold would be a lot less value than what that teleport is. Because if Haunter uses his teleport to go to a tower, then Someday uses his teleport to go to a team fight. And that 5v4 team fight will force the end of the game. And I can say that with 100% certainty because Dignitas has a 4,000 gold lead right now. It's really up for TSM to somehow find an advantage with these four. The only way to do that is with Jarvan and Sejuani. Jarvan and Sejuani are your primary engage tool, which means you need to continue to make you need to continue to make rotations, you need to continue to move around, and you need to continue searching for a mistake that Dignitas makes. If Dignitas makes a mistake and they get caught out, one of them or two of them may die. If one of them or two of them may die, then TSM can push onto towers. If TSM can push onto towers, they can nullify the gold lead. If TSM gets kills, they can nullify the gold lead. If they can nullify the gold lead, they can win the game. But they need to nullify the gold lead. That's why they have to play from behind. And I understand that generally I said earlier that teams that are behind have to play reactively. And Dignitas may make a mistake, but because the gold lead is so high now, it's likely that Dignitas may be able to win this game and TSM can't do anything about it. It's likely that I believe that Dignitas has the capability to not make a mistake in the following 10 minutes of the game, because I think this game can be over in 10 minutes. I think it could be over in 6 if people were crazy, but I don't think anybody's crazy. Dignitas starts to hover Baron. They realize that they have Baron potential. They have Baron potential because they have Cassiopeia, Callista, Graves. If they force Baron, they force a team fight. If they force a team fight, they win the game. Why do they win the game? Because they already have a 4,000 gold lead. You can't win a team fight when you're an entire item behind your enemy. Unless there are strange champions that do strange things in this game. And but in this specific game that we're watching right now, there is not. Dignitas is looking to go aggressive. They're pushing in the mid lane. They really want to get on this Baron. The only problem that Dignitas has with this Baron here is that if they group up for the Sedge ult and the Jarvan 4 ult. And this also leads into the Xerath ult. So all three of these are really potent in that small area of effect, and because you're always in a small area, all area of effect becomes greater, including all of Xerath. So they need to kill this Baron as fast as possible. And if you notice, they've only been on the Baron for a couple seconds, and they've chunked down 3,000 health. And you can largely attribute that to Cassiopeia and Graves. And a little bit of Callista, but Callista's really going to be focusing on that 1,500 damage rend that's going to come out. You're going to see it. Yeah, it's going by more than 1,000 health per second. Keen's starting to get low on mana. The Thresh Hook comes out. The Maokai ult comes out. Callista secures the Baron with rend. Dignitas goes to continue the fight. They go ahead and they get on to Double Lift. Double Lift dies in exchange for Adrian. And it's fine that Adrian dies, because Adrian's just a face tank. Remember, Blitzcrank is just a face tank. Other than his cheese, he is a face tank. So if him dying for them getting power and Baron is perfectly fine. Svenskryn ults it out. He doesn't want to get caught. Good capitalization by let's sorry, I missed that here. Notice how Someday separates from the rest of Dignitas. Um and he gets taken out by all of the burst from Hanser and Bjergsen. Had he not separated, they would have a lot of pressure on this tower, but that's a big mistake by Dignitas. But it's okay. Dignitas has a lot of gold right now. Baron gives you 1,500 gold. They got 300, so they got 1,800 gold. And however much gold they were holding from all the CS they got. So they're holding a couple thousand gold. You see some important items get finished. We see a needless large rod come out for Cassiopeia that's going to be going into Seraph's Embrace. We see the Eye of the Watcher coming out for Blitzcrank, and here's the fight again for everybody who wants to watch. But they have 3 Baron buffs. They can put them in 3 lanes. Remember, you can put 3 Baron buffs in 3 lanes if you really want to. Because who doesn't? Or well, no, you can't. They can put Baron buffs in 2 lanes because Maokai dies. Maokai would be your 3rd lane. So they're looking for Baron buff in 1 or 2 lanes right now. And let's look at the timer here. They have 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And if they pressure something with this Baron buff, they can win the game. They are at a 5,000 gold. Yeah, 5,000 gold ahead. And this is what I normally call tipping point. And why I call this tipping point is because it becomes to a point where TSM may lose, and it may only be 1 mistake. Meaning they're not allowed to make any more mistakes before the game is over if they want to win. We can see that that is not the case. Yeah. Let's watch that. Or I think we'll get a replay. Let's wait for the replay. But now that the inhibitor's down, they rotate top lane. They rotate top lane. They get that top lane tower. If they feel unsafe in getting that and getting the top lane base tower, then they go to dragon. I find it odd. I feel like they could grab this tower. Yeah, they have health, mana, health and mana, mostly health and mana. Does Graves have lifesteal? Yeah, Graves has bot RK. He can lifesteal off any jungle camp. And some days in top lane. They can rotate top lane here because you still have death timers. Which these were longer. They were about 20 seconds when they finished the inhibitor. And I'm talking inhibitor to top, not here to top. Inhibitor to top. That's the actual play. And they get this top lane tower. And then if they felt unsafe taking the base top lane tower, which it would be an unsafe decision because they don't have Keen, then they go to dragon. But they choose to make the safe route. This is the safe route. They leave Maokai top lane. Maokai is teleport. Maokai is going to put pressure on that tower, and they go ahead and they take dragon anyway. And this is also a really good decision because it forces dragon, and it forces dragon for free because someone has to respond to Maokai. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if see Dignitas would have to make incredible mistakes to lose the game before this fight happened. But I would call this because I called it tipping point. I also talk about another idea in a lot of games, and I call it the Hail Mary. Um, And why I call it that is because I don't know, in like Madden you call a Hail Mary play like a fucking the play you do when you're behind or you need to win. You need the one play. You need the one play to change the game. It's your one play to change the game. You got to pull a Hail Mary and maybe you can make something work. And that's what I'm assuming TSM did here with this fight when they engaged it, and they tried to make it work, and they couldn't make it work. Is there anything interesting for the rest of this game? I really don't think that there's anything more interesting in this game to be looked at. Um, because once you have I mean, at a 9,000 gold lead, like that's what we're looking, or 8,000 gold lead. This game is impossible to come back from. I can tell you for 100% fact that Dignitas will not make mistakes so great that this can come back. It would utterly shock me. Yeah, Dignitas loses Maokai in exchange for Sejuani, right? But they lost a Nexus turret doing that. Like this is why I said like when inhibitors start to be something that's a part of the game changes completely. Um, that's what's happening here, and they get the turret. And the next thing that they're gonna do is go bottom lane and get that turret. No, they're not. They're gonna wait for Baron. Dignitas has had a history of waiting for Baron and relying on Baron to win games, and especially season 7 has been a season where Baron has been highly contested by a lot of teams and a lot of players in every region, um, as a tool to win the game. And even when it seems like the game is already won, it seems like a necessary tool. Um, Callista smites the Baron when it has 200 health. Keen flashes and cleanses out of the hook. What's going on here? I'm so confused. This is so odd to me. This bothers me a lot. This bothers me a lot. So why this bothers me a lot is because they have Baron and a gold lead. I know that this is bad positioning. Like if they positioned like this, they cannot win this fight. I know that for a fact. Um, but if they change their positioning, like Keen flashing now rather than getting hit by the hook and then cleansing and flashing, Keen flashing now into a better position, Adrian moving forward. No, no, they can't win this fight. They can't win this fight in any way. Sumday's too low health, and maybe let's figure out how we got into this position. So we're doing Baron. Blitzcrank's trying to keep people off. Blitzcrank's taking free damage. Someday engages the fight long before the Baron's finished. And why I say long before, I mean it was like 4 seconds. Maybe it was not even like 4 seconds. But it was long enough so that he lost like most of his health bar. And I'm assuming that he has his passive right now, but his passive may give him about that much health. Which isn't enough for them to fight this fight unless they completely turn on to him here. They turn on to Haunter. Haunter goes low. Yeah, that was really badly played by Keen. Keen was not allowed to get hit by that hook. He needed to flash that hook and just get out of there. But like this is so badly played by Dignitas. Like allowing all of these things to take place. Like I said earlier, like they could go bottom and pressure bottom and even an even bigger gold lead, because now that this tower is out of way and they can keep the mid lane pushed and have pressure on that inhibitor, they can get the bottom tower for essentially free if they play it correctly. Um, which leads to a larger gold lead, which leads to forcing a fight. And if they could force a fight and force an advantage before they take this Baron, they can win the Baron over. But maybe the actual mistake here is trying to do the Baron with, wait, hold on. They started this Baron with Adrian half health and Someday 75%. That's the mistake. That's why Dignitas somehow threw this. I don't know if they still lost because they got the Baron and they still have the gold lead. What are they doing? That's the replay. Let's it's still it's still an 8,000 gold lead. Something's going to happen. Someday's all the way back here. What's happening? No, it's yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's game. This was bound to happen sooner or later. I would have been absolutely shocked. It would shock me that an NA team, um, if they managed to lose after gaining an 8,000 gold lead. Um, but Dignitas obviously made several mistakes in getting picked off, several mistakes around major objectives, several mistakes around the Baron, several mistakes including when to Baron, how to Baron, who to prioritize. Someday diving, never mind. I don't even fucking care. Uh, like I Dignitas played the first 20 minutes of the game really well, but after the 20-minute mark, Dignitas did not perform. And that's why I'm really disappointed in the outcome of that game. Um, because TSM was already so far behind that they could not come back after 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 so many mistakes by Dignitas. Um, but I'm gonna conclude this video here for now. This was a really long video. I appreciate everybody who goes ahead and watches this. Um, I'm gonna be leaving this open, and anybody who needs coaching or if anybody wants to request me going over videos or going over games in any region, I'll look at LAN, I'll look at LAS, Brazil, Oceania, Japan. I'll go over any game as long as I can find it on YouTube. Just let me know. Thank you.